I woke up reaching for the glow that wasn't there. My nightstand, a square of oak with a nick from childhood, stared back at me, empty, almost smug. Last night I'd fallen asleep with the box lit under the lamp, the peelable plastic still curled in a neat ribbon like a snake shedding doubt. I'd set my phone screen down, right on the soft circle my water glass always leaves. 3 alarms were set. A new number was waiting to be transferred. A whole clean life, zipped into brushed aluminum and an untouched screen. Now there was a ring of condensation, a faint rectangle of dry wood and nothing else. I did the ritual searches. Under the bed, in the hoodie pocket, behind the stack of unread mail, even under the rug, because desperation makes fools of us. No phone. The box was still there, open like a mouth that had said too much and couldn't take it back. I padded out to the kitchen, bare feet cold on tile, reheating yesterday's coffee like punishment. My parents were already dressed, the kind of formal that means errands you aren't invited to. My mother's voice had the bright, brittle cheer of a store window. "Good morning," she said, which meant, "Brace yourself. Have you seen my phone?" I asked, and my father folded the newspaper with that precise snap that used to mean he'd solve things. "We gave it to your brother," he said. 4 words, and the world slipped sideways. My brain held onto the we like a lifeline and found it was just tinsel. "You what?" My mother set down her mug too gently. "He needs it more than you do," she said, as if she were explaining vitamins. "His job applications, his interviews, he can't keep missing calls. You'll be fine for a while, sweetheart." I laughed, a small, sharp thing that bounced off the cabinets. "You took something from my room. That I paid for." My father's jaw flexed around an apology that never materialized. "Family resources serve family needs," he recited, a familiar creed, dusted off for emergencies and favoritism. "It's temporary," my mother added. "We'll work something out when things settle." I stared at the tiny scratch on the table, a white crescent we never sanded out. I could feel my old shape, helpful, accommodating, rising like a reflex. I swallowed it. "Then bring him here," I said, "and he can hand it back himself." He arrived like a weather change, door swinging, air cooling, the subtle shift of pressure we all pretended not to notice. Noah hugged Mom, bumped fists with Dad, glanced at me, and aimed straight for the fridge, narration already playing. "It's not like I asked," he said, voice loaded with injured innocence. He bit into an apple like a gavel. "They offered. I've got 3 callbacks today. I can't show up with a cracked screen and a prepaid number that dies mid-sentence." He looked at the gleaming rectangle in his hand. My rectangle. My name still on the setup screen, faint ghost behind his thumb. "You could have texted me," I said. "Or, wild idea, bought your own." He shrugged, a practiced gesture that said both "what can you do?" and "I won't. You know my situation." Translation: his missteps were context, mine were character flaws. "Congratulations on your situation," I said, and felt the part of me that keeps the peace tug at my sleeve. It was the same part that covered for him in high school when he borrowed my bus pass, the same part that lied to Mom about who dented the sob. "I need you to hand it back." He studied me like an interviewer, deciding whether I was difficult. "It's just until Friday," he said. "They said." He flicked his eyes toward our parents. My father folded his arms, courtroom posture. "This is a family decision," he announced, as if the minutes had been recorded. "We don't snipe about it." I turned to my mother, hoping for a bridge. "You know I saved for months," I said. "You watched me compare plans and skip dinners out and pick the cheaper case. You were there when I bought it." Her mouth softened with something like grief. "He's trying, honey." Something in me separated with a quiet rip. "I am too," I said. "And I'm not renting space to the family emergency forever." I held out my hand to Noah. He didn't move, so I did. 2 steps, a palm extended. He pulled the phone back to his chest like a child with a toy he likes more now that it's contested. "You really want to do this?" he asked, tone daring me to be the problem. I thought of every time I'd been easy, so he could be careless. "Yes," I said. "I really do." Silence stretched, the kind that makes you wonder if you've stepped outside the family story and onto honest ground. Dad exhaled through his nose. "Fine," he said. "Set a boundary. But set a solution too. Lunch. All of us. We'll revisit." I lowered my hand, not surrendering, just rescheduling the battle. I didn't wait for lunch. At my desk, I opened the box again like it might apologize. The cereal stickers were still inside. I'd photographed the receipt. The IMEI was in my notes. I signed into my account and watched the little icon of my phone bloom on the Find map like a guilty star in our neighborhood. One tap, lost mode. A prompt asked what message I wanted on the lock screen. I typed, "This device is registered to me. Please return it." No threats. No drama. Just a claim with a spine. The map pulsed, and somewhere across town Noah's new righteousness went dim. Mom texted, "Please don't escalate." Dad called and left a message laced with boardroom serenity. "We're all going to be reasonable." It was the same sermon that always ended with me being the reasonable one. I brewed tea I wouldn't drink and drafted a list titled Solutions. Option A, I recover my phone, hand Noah my old one with a fresh battery, and a paid month on a starter plan. Option B, they reimburse me now. I help Noah polish his resume and prep mock interviews, and he buys his own refurbished phone today. Option C, we treat this like what it is, an overreach, and they apologize, full stop, and we rebuild trust on purpose instead of by accident. I put the list in my pocket like armor. At the diner, our family took the same corner booth we'd occupied for birthdays and ceasefires. Noah slid in with the phone face down, a posture of pretend humility. Dad ordered for the table, a show of control that made the water taste like compliance. When the plates arrived, I set my napkin down and said, I activated lost mode. Noah's head snapped up. "Are you serious?" he hissed. "I have a Zoom in an hour." I met his stare. "Then you should bring your own equipment." Mom winced. "Sweetheart," I kept my voice level. "I'm not punishing you. I'm correcting something that shouldn't have happened." I laid out the options like a menu, not a threat. "You can take my old phone today, already charged, SIM ready. Or I'll sit with you. We'll order a certified refurb. I'll even spot the tax if you need it. Or we acknowledge this crossed a line. You hand mine back now, and we start over with boundaries." Noah's laugh was small and mean. "Boundaries. Your new favorite word." I felt heat climb my neck and let it pass like weather. "My favorite is consent," I said, "especially for things I buy and keep in my room." Dad started to recite the creed. Family resources, family needs, but Mom touched his wrist, a rare public veto. "She's right," she said softly, surprising herself and me. "We shouldn't have taken it." Noah looked at her, then at me, then at the black slab between his fingers, suddenly heavy. "Fine," he said, a surrender shaped like a dare. He slid the phone across the formica. It stopped in front of me, and for a second I didn't touch it, like picking it up would erase the point. Then I did, and the screen lit with my name. Back home, I set the phone on the nightstand where the circle of dryness waited for it like a saved seat. It buzzed with a backlog of welcome and apology, activation emails, a carrier text, Mom's, "Thank you for handling that calmly," and no a single wow. I turned on a lamp and did what I always do after chaos. I made an inventory. Receipts in a folder. Cereal in a note. Passcode changed. Face ID recaptured. I set up a guess mode because foresight is kinder than suspicion. Then I taped a small label inside the box. Property of me, not because cardboard needed clarity, but because I did. Mom hovered in the doorway like she used to when I was sick, and independence was a fever that broke slowly. "I'm sorry," she said, and the words were so plain they almost startled me. "No defense, no him about family needs." "We panicked," she added. "We wanted him to feel like he had a chance, and we used yours." I patted the bedspread beside me. "I want him to have a chance too," I said, "but I also want to stop paying interest on choices I didn't make." She nodded, eyes shiny. "We'll do better." It sounded small and enormous at once. Dad asked for a logistics meeting like we were restructuring a division. We sat at the kitchen table with coffee and paper and the sticky ghost of a label someone peeled off too fast. He read my list of options again, slower. "We adopt a rule," he said finally, writing it out in careful block letters. "No borrowing without consent. No redistributing personal property. Ask, then respect the answer." He underlined respect twice. He looked older doing it, but not weaker. More like he'd stopped bracing for a storm and accepted the weather. We posted the page on the fridge where report cards and holiday cards take turns being the most important thing. Noah texted later, a signal instead of a siren. "I ordered a refurb. Specs aren't as good. It'll do." Then, after a minute, "I'm sorry. I didn't fight for the right thing because the wrong thing was easier." I typed, Deleted, retyped, then sent. Thank you. I'll help with the resume anyway. Tuesday. He sent a thumbs up and, unexpectedly, a calendar invite. It landed in my inbox like a small bridge laid plank by plank. I slid my reclaimed phone into its case, the edges clicking into place with a quiet satisfaction. Ownership wasn't about clutching, it was about clarity. My nightstand was a nightstand again, not a contested border. The glow returned, soft and obedient. I set one alarm, mine to set, and slept. On Tuesday we sat side by side at the dining table, Noah and I, two laptops open like unblinking eyes. He read his resume out loud, stumbling over verbs that hit instead of delivered, assisted, supported, helped with. We rewrote them into spine words. Led, built, shipped. I set up a calendar of follow-ups, showed him how to filter job boards, and recorded a mock interview on my newly reclaimed camera. State the result, I said when he drifted. Give a number. He did, and for once he didn't roll his eyes. I watched the small muscle in his jaw relax when clarity replaced improvisation. During a break, he held my old phone, the one with the new battery I'd installed, the case scarred like a veteran. It'll get me through a few months, he said. That's all I need. It struck me how often that line had been my private prayer, shrunk to fit the margin of someone else's urgency. I poured water, and he didn't make a joke of the moment. I'm trying, he added quieter. I know, I said and meant it. The apology had been a turning of soil. This was something green pushing up. At dinner, Dad taped a smaller page beside the rule sheet. How to ask. It was almost funny and absolutely necessary. 3 bullets about naming the need, offering an exchange, and honoring no as an answer. Mom slid a magnet over the corner, smoothing it, like she could iron our habits flat. I set my phone on the table while we ate, not as bait, not as a test, just as a thing that belonged to me in a room where that sentence finally had no echo. We talked about ordinary things, rent, recipes, a movie that made us all cry for different reasons. The house felt less like a courtroom and more like a porch light left on. That night I renamed my home Wi-Fi Ask First. Petty. Maybe. Declarative. Definitely. I backed up my photos, set boundaries on my calendar, and added a shared note labeled Family Borrowing with boxes to tick. Systems weren't cold, they were kindness in advance. When I turned off the lamp, the phone's glass held the soft outline of my face and gave it back without argument. I thought about ownership, consent, and the love that doesn't confuse the two. Noah forwarded a calendar invite titled Offer Call and hovered in the doorway like a kid who'd learned not to knock too hard. I nodded to the chair beside me and pulled up the notes we'd made. Numbers highlighted, stories crisp, a line at the top that read Ask for what you need. When the recruiter joined, Noah didn't shrink behind helper verbs. He said I led, I fixed, I shipped. He asked for a salary that didn't apologize. When the call ended, he didn't whoop. He exhaled, long and honest. They'll send paperwork, he said, eyes wide in a way I hadn't seen since we were small and success fit in a shoebox. That night we did something ceremonial and ridiculous. We signed a family pact on printer paper. Dad wrote the title with an engineer's precision, respect and request, and Mom stuck it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a lemon. We added boxes to tick, borrowed with consent. Return date agreed. Exchange offered. Noah drew a tiny phone in the corner and wrote thank you underneath like a caption. It felt corny and also like oxygen. Systems don't love you back, but they keep you from loving badly. I took my new phone to the carrier to swap off the temporary number, and the clerk asked, "Want insurance?" I almost laughed. I'd already purchased the only kind that matters, boundaries. On the way home, I stopped by the thrift store and found a case with a barely there scratch that looked like a comet. It reminded me that even perfect things become particular. I set the phone on my nightstand when I got in, and it didn't feel like contraband or currency. It was just a tool, calibrated to me. My alarms, my playlists, my calendar colored with blocks of time no one else could spend. Later, Noah texted a screenshot of the signed offer with 3 fire emojis he would deny sending under oath. I replied with a thumbs up and a calendar invite to dinner, my treat. At the table, Dad raised his glass and didn't make a speech. Mom squeezed my hand under the napkin. We ate slow and ordinary, and that felt like the prize. Afterwards, I renamed the Wi-Fi one last time, We Ask, We Share, and smiled at how cheesy and true it looked on the connection list. If anyone needs the summary line, here it is, the only one I owe anyone. A week after Noah's job offer, the house started to hum differently. The tension that used to live between the walls had turned into a kind of quiet rhythm, the sound of people who finally respected each other's space. One morning, Mom called me to the kitchen, holding up her old tablet with a grin. "Can you help me update this?" she asked, and for the first time in years, it wasn't a demand but a request. I wiped the screen, downloaded the software, and handed it back. She thanked me, a small word that used to be rare around here. That night, I scrolled through my messages and found one from Noah. "Dinner Friday?" My treat this time. He attached a photo of his new work badge, his grin half pride, half disbelief. I realized we'd stopped being a problem to fix and started being two people rebuilding trust, one shared meal at a time. When I walked past his room later, he was editing his budget spreadsheet, muttering numbers under his breath like prayer beads. It made me laugh softly, the math of redemption, simple but precise. Lying in bed, I looked at the phone resting on the nightstand, the same place where this story began. The glow from the screen reflected on the ceiling, steady and calm. It wasn't about ownership anymore. It was about connection, the kind that doesn't depend on borrowed things or broken promises. The kind that asks, listens, and answers. I turned off the light and let the darkness settle, full of signals we'd finally learned how to keep strong and clear.